Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates. With your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of my interview with my friend Patti, who's a special ed teacher, and she'll be talking about her son Nicholas, who has autism. In this second half of our interview, you'll learn how she prepared Nick to get a job after he graduates and how he ended up participating in the Special Olympics.
When he came here to the district we're in now, he worked at Marshall's. He wound up getting a job. His first job was at Marshall's. So that transitioned into that. He worked in the back room. He broke down boxes. He did recycling. He, stocked the shelves. Customer service is limited.
And he worked by himself, or somebody was there with him?
So initially, again, he was there with his job coach. So he had that
experience. School, right? But you said he got a job there.
But then he got a job there. She just stopped coming because school was over, and then he just continued his.
So that was that. So he graduated and he got a and he
graduated. He graduated, into high school at 21 in 2017 from New Providence, and he was working over the summer doing his work at Marshall's, but it was part time, and I'm a teacher, so I had to go back to work. So I'm like, we have to find this kid some full-time employment, and people go, what? Full-time employment, but he has autism. I'm like, yes. So he's perfectly capable. My goal was making him a productive member of society. Well, how's this kid going to sit through an interview for a job? And he couldn't, he needed somebody who I had to support him through the answers, through the questions, if I had to rephrase the question. And I didn't know if that was okay to do, or if that was something that was, like, parents don't know. You go on an interview, you're going to bring your mom? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Right. But apparently you can do that. And I did it. And we had like maybe 5 interviews. He got 2 offers. He got an offer at like a custodial assistant, and he got offered a food utility worker position in the corporate cafeteria. And I knew, like, you also get a feel of the boss when you go for the interview. Is this going to be a good match for my child?
Sure.
And this guy, Jim, he melted my heart. I'm like, I hope he gets this job, because I knew it was going to be, it was going to be great.
Was he able to work independently? Like, did
so
on top of him, or?
So when he got the job, Jim, his boss, knew. I told him, I said, I'll be involved as much as I need to be until I have to go back to work. There was a job coach, again, from the program, and they would come in the very beginning. That's typical what happens
in our house.
Special needs. Yeah, they go in and they monitor and they watch. But then Nick would come home and I would ask him questions, and I was just like, yeah, no, I don't know. I think I need to go in. So I went in to watch the job coach with Nick, and I'm like, oh yeah, no. I got it from here. I'm just like, because she was prompted. She would tell him to do something, and he wouldn't do it, and then she would go do it. I'm like, well, what is that doing? Like,
yeah, that's not gonna work. Yeah.
So I was like, thank you so much. So it's all good. And I went in. Jim was wonderful. He took me through his whole morning, what Nick had to do. I typed it into my phone. I came home. I made lists. I made rhymes, songs, whatever I needed to do. Worked with him, and went in with him after that to model and show and fade myself out. And within a few days, I was like, bye. And he was on his own.
Wow.
And he stayed there until the only reason he's been let go as of December 31st was COVID, because they're not reopening. They closed down in May, but they wanted to keep the team together. They paid Nick through December without going to work because they wanted him to come back.
Right.
And they're not reopening. So we had to go start again. And
there was 2 things I wanted to ask you about was the past year, 2020, with COVID and all that. Like, how did it affect you at all? And the reason I ask is because I found out that Robbie's day program he went to has been shut down all year, and he would have had nowhere to go, nothing to do, and it would have been a complete disaster. So you said they closed in May. So did he stop working in May, or he worked till
He
December?
stopped working in May, so he
What
was
has he been
home
doing?
and gaining weight because he's been home, like all of us.
Like everybody.
Um,
Yeah.
and walking the dog.
But
And
routine stuff is more important to them, and as soon as you make that type of a change, in their life, or they can, act out, have behaviors, whatever, who knows what.
thank goodness, he's pretty stable. I have to say, he handled the change well. Every morning before, well, I shouldn't say every morning, but a majority of the mornings before I leave in the morning, I leave him a list of things to check off. He doesn't like that I leave
Stay home alone?
So well, he does have he also has epilepsy. So that is the concern of leaving him alone. I have video cameras everywhere. So when I go to work, I can see him. Again, great thing. My daughter is working from home, so she's here.
Okay.
So she's home. The other program we have, and again, it's terrible that I should know all the names of the programs. He has a community support person that comes 3 times a week. It was only 2, and then we upped it once he lost his job to 3 times a week, from 9 to 1, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So he's got somebody with him. They go shopping, or they go to the mall, or they.
That's what I was going to ask. Do they do things? Okay. And is he okay with wearing a mask when he goes out? Doesn't bother him?
He's, again, who knew that the kid who has terrorized every possible situation as a toddler and preschooler with not wanting to wear low socks when it was summer because he likes his high socks from the winter, and changing over to that would wear a mask. Okay, it's SpongeBob, but he wears a mask, at 25, or Mickey Mouse of some sort.
Right.
Can't get past that.
Right.
But he's an endearing kid, and people, luckily, have a heart for him.
When he was in high school, did he interact with the other kids in school? Like, was that okay? Did he ever get bullied, is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Because kids in public school, that's my concern.
Yes. I don't know why he did not get bullied. And I don't know why, but that was one of my worst fears. And he did have his sister when he got into middle school. His sister was in the same school.
I think that's a help.
So that was probably definitely a help. And, he was in out of district placement for, a majority of his education. And then when he got into school, back into the district, the people there were wonderful, and they too had special programs, buddy teams, and he was on the track team, and did this, and they were all very, very accepting. And those kids were just, it was an inclusive environment in the sense that, okay, yes, it was separate classroom, but for certain kids, but it was very well supported. There was a good team there of educators that I think made the difference, and the kids they were just good. They were good kids.
Good. I'm just wondering, like, did they do anything to educate the kids?
I didn't know anything specific.
They had a buddy program though.
But, well, the buddy,
track, so he was involved in sort of a team sport thing. So
right. But you have to. Another thing that parents should definitely be aware of is that you don't know what's available until you ask. So he went on the track team, but I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't he have some sort of support? He's on the regular track team. How is this going to work? Yeah, he's a fast runner and can do things, but he doesn't know how to I don't know, function in the real environment with other, and this is 17, 18-year-olds, when his functional level is maybe 8. So I wound up getting an aide that would stay after school with him. Who knew that the school would support an aide for him after school, or even to go to dances? There was an aide. I had an aide go with him.
School dances?
School dances.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. Oh, he loves to dance. Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up track. Tell me about Special Olympics.
Okay. Wow. I just have to say wow, because it's a community of people that are all in your boat. It's like a yacht of people in your boat. Not a lot, a yacht. And then that just support you and your family through things and situations that a typical kid would engage in that they would not otherwise have the opportunity, if that makes sense, to participate in sports. And they gear it so that everybody basically is a winner, and everybody feels successful. And they learn. He learned soccer. He played in so many different things, bowling, track. I don't even know what else. And he happened to excel in track, and he wound up making the process of going through getting asked to be on Team New Jersey is what they call it. And he they look, can he be by himself? Does he respond to directions from other people than his family? Is he able to take direction from other, even strangers, from another team or another coach? And they picked him. We were blown out of the water. We were so excited. It was happening in Seattle, Washington, and he wound up going. You have to actually bring them to the airport and drop them off. This was my thing. I'm like,
oh, you didn't go? I thought you flew.
Wait. Yeah, no. So, well, we went.
Yes.
But you have to actually drop them at the airport. Can they be away from you for a period of time? Can he supervise his own medication? These are all things that you have to, he can, this was all stuff that he could do, but not because it just happened, because we taught him. Have to literally teach them you still teaching. Yes, they're learning some things on their own, but when a new thing comes up, they have to have it broken down, explained, taught, generalized, and maintained over the course of time. So the whole thing was like 10 days that he was living in the dorms at the University of Washington, going to to go eat and hang out with his friends and compete and go do activities, go to the baseball game. It was phenomenal. So yeah, we took, I think it was the next later flight that night or the next day, and we flew down across and got to watch one of the most spectacular scenes that you ever, as a parent, could possibly imagine. And he wound up winning first place in the shot put and first place in his 4x100 relay with his team. So that was an amazing experience. And then not only that, he went back to work. They gave him the time off. When he got there, his boss had a picture of Nick, and his Special Olympic champion, and medals on it. And everybody at work was, all the bankers at Wells Fargo were congratulating him. And
that's so nice.
Who does that? That's just such special.
That was great. Right. Okay, so to wrap it up, what does the future hold, do you think? Now you said, it's you're divorced, a single mom. I know you're in a relationship but not remarried, correct?
Correct.
So, and your daughter has been working from home.
Right.
What's going to happen? This is something that every parent has to think about in the future. Right. What happens when you're not there someday? Where's Nick going to be?
Right.
Have you done any planning? Have you become his legal guardian? Any of that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. So I definitely became his legal guardian. I highly suggest that. Otherwise, the kids are able to make their own decisions once they're 18, and you know how that'll go. So you don't want to put you or them in that position. So it's in their best interest. Usually, there are some kids that are able to handle that, but a majority of them, I would say, not. So I have sole guardianship for him, and my goal for him prior to the onset of his epilepsy was that he would live on his own and have a job and just be Nick, but now with the epilepsy, it's a whole different story, because he's fallen and many stitches over time, injuries, and it's scary because, he can't really be by himself. He needs pretty much supervision all the time. I let him walk to the store. Now he's able to cross the street with the flag in New Providence, and he waves it, but as far as plans for like, I would love for him to now be in a position where he could be eventually in a supervised, I don't want to say supervised, like a supported, like he doesn't need somebody on top of him, but I definitely would need somebody to be nearby just in case, like
Kind
if,
of like an assisted living thing, because my mom's in a
right,
nursing home now, and
right,
she's really too independent to be there, but she can't be alone either because she had a stroke, right? So she just needs somebody to be nearby. We've told her, well, what if you fall and you can't get up?
right.
I have to get you one of those little devices.
There is actually, there's one that I'm looking into.
Nearby.
There's one I'm looking into. You actually fall. You don't even have to push the button. It senses the fall. So that's always an option. But yeah, just trying to get him. I want him to be with his peers because he needs social life. Right now, his social life is me and his dad.
Right.
And
just backing up a little bit,
yeah,
there is a place in Warren that is like an assisted living place for higher functioning autistic, people that can kind of live in their own apartment and feed themselves
right.
stuff, but there's always staff right there, right outside the door, basically.
Yep.
But it's like $100,000 a year to live there.
I was just going to say, there's one in East Orange that we looked at.
Who's got that kind of money?
And I'm like, I think this one was 60,000 or something. And
yeah, that's not the answer. So that's and then my last question to you, what I wanted to know was, so you really don't have an answer. You're saying an assisted living type of thing would be ideal for him, but yet that place doesn't exist.
Right. And now with COVID, I'm not going anywhere. That's not happening.
Yeah. So what, but is there something in the system, in the school system or whatever, that you'd like to see changed, or you think there could be an improvement? Like if I sat you down with the governor or senator, somebody of our state or whatever, somebody who can make changes in policy or whatever, what would you talk to them about?
Wow. That's a loaded question. I could, it could be days that I could know. Pretty much everything. I would just start from, ground zero. Again, in New Jersey, I'm not familiar with the early intervention system. It would have to, I would say, start from literally the ground up. So it would have to be, the priority would be first early intervention and teaching whoever needs to be taught the needs of how the quality of the education early on has a greater impact and greater return down the road, which in turn will save the district's money. Because I myself was brought to New Providence to start my program, which was an ABA preschool program, with the hopes of taking those kids and changing them and supporting them so that they can get into the mainstream environment, as opposed to staying in the system of special education where they might be out of district for many, many, many years at a very high cost to the district. So explaining that in and of itself would be a humongous start. And then I would go right into just the training of the staff. There's no training of the staff, like in so limited in the districts that I've worked in districts that are around. Again, you have the rare district that does do it, but to make a global change, it's going to have to be it's got to be across the board, something statewide that would be infused into all of the districts to make it an even playing field for all the families, because some kids and some families are getting the champagne and some kids are getting the beer, and we don't want that. We want it, and a lot of districts say, well, they're not entitled to champagne. Well, you can say that as a district, but as a parent, if it's out there, I want it. Right. So we want to make the districts aware that the more support they give the kids early on, the better it's going to be in the long run for everybody involved. We're going to have.
You guys are a perfect model of that. You and your son.
Oh yeah,
a perfect model of that.
Thank you. It was, and you look at it now and people are like, oh, Nick's great. I'm like, oh, you didn't see Nick when he was, 3. And
And this is what I'm
funny.
thinking. If you weren't already a special ed teacher and knew how to make all those books and charts and schedules and all that stuff for him, because I
Yes.
watched this. My daughter taught special ed at Robbie's school, and she now has 2 little kids of her own, and she's home with Corona. But she's got those kids on a schedule, and they're doing their da 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 da. Her 1-year-old can read, and I'm like, he's not even 2 years old yet, and he can count to 10, and he knows his letters and whatever. But that's
Right.
because
The
she's
involvement.
trained in that.
Right.
Somebody like me, when I was raising Robbie, I didn't have any training in any of that.
No. And I'm sorry, I'm going to add one more thing.
Yeah.
I'll keep saying I'll add one more thing. It'll be 20 things later. Because you just mentioned it. Huge component that's missing is family training in
Yes.
districts. So it doesn't matter as a teacher, as an educator, what I do every day for 5 hours a day. If those kids go home and they get to do what they want, I start all over again the next morning. So part of my program that I do is that's infused, and the parents, I don't want to toot my own horn, but the parents that have gone through my program are so grateful for what we were able to give them and the difference it made in their lives, in their children's lives, in their family, the quality of their family life. I'm a second grade in-class support teacher now, so it's completely different. I did it for 23 years or whatever I did. So it's a little change of pace, but I was sitting in my classroom and the announcements came on, and they're like, and the announcements today are going to be by Michael, I'm not going to say the last name, so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, that was one of my babies.
Oh.
Yeah, like who was in my preschool class, who couldn't sit still, who couldn't eat, who couldn't do this, who couldn't do that, stimmed on the letters on the wall. And he did the morning announcements like there was no tomorrow. And I was just like, tears just started rolling down my face. I was like, and I still get letters from parents of appreciation and gratitude, and where would we be without what you gave us? So if we could do that on a regular, like, to make the change for those families, that would be something that if we could get that support from the state, and I would, what's the word, when you take the lead, I mean, I would be the first one to help. Right. I would,
pioneer of that.
What's that? Thank you. Pioneer, like in New Providence. I'd be the pioneer. I would love to be the pioneer of getting that started. And my dream, my own personal dream then is take it from the schools out to the families and then spread it out.
To the nation.
To the nation. To the nation.
Yeah, because I've heard from people from other states that just don't have anything like we have here in New Jersey.
No.
The kids are sitting home all day. They don't even have school to go to during the day. It's just
right. No, it's and the early intervention, if I'm correct, the early intervention in New Jersey, you have to pay for it. And I think it's prorated, like based on your salary or what you earn. But I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
I don't know. I know someone that has a little one that they come to the house, and I think it's covered under health insurance. She might have to.
They get it under health insurance.
Might have to.
Don't have health insurance.
Part of it, I'm not sure.
Right. But I think back to the 20 hours a week that I got for free,
in New York.
Like, how is that? Yeah. How is that? How
do they still do that? I wonder though.
I don't know. I don't know. I can find out, but I don't know. Yeah. I still have connections. But I would be in full support of doing whatever it took to make that change for the family.
Yeah, because people have to understand, like for me, I had a lot of trouble following through at home with Robbie. Like he refused to sit at the table and eat. He wanted to sit on the floor in his room and watch TV and eat on the floor in his room. And if I tried to get him to sit at the table, he'd scream, pinch, bite, kick, throw himself on the floor, and I had 4 kids, so like, I'm like, okay, fine, just take it and go. Like, I can't deal with this, but at school, total different kid. He'd go through the line, take his food, carry his tray, sit down, eat
Yeah.
nicely, eat with a fork. The teachers could get him to do these things that I couldn't do at home.
Yeah.
And it would have been awesome if somebody would have come to the house
And
and
sure.
tried to and followed through,
General
even
skills.
like he
Yeah.
was never really fully potty trained. Not until he went into a group home did he finally, one day he got up and went to the bathroom by himself. And I said, "Are you kidding me? This whole time you were able to do that and you were acting like you couldn't, you know?" So they're just different at home.
Yeah.
Any kid is different at home than they are in
is.
school.
But
But this is like, I'm talking about basic, because people don't understand. I'm not talking about people. We're not talking about people coming home and teaching you, tutoring them in how to read. We're talking about
no,
basic
just life skills.
skills.
Yeah. And that's what I want to do, or that's what I would hope would happen, is to provide the parents with the tools necessary to do that. And I always say, you need a toolbox. You always have to have your toolbox. You have to be ready.
Mhm.
The littlest things, when I used to go into parents' homes, it was kind of like Nanny 911.
Yes.
People call me like Patty Poppins. Like I would pop
Yeah.
in. So I pop in.
I was thinking that before. I'm like, this is like the Nanny show.
This is exactly. I would love to do that. That would be my literal ultimate dream. I always said to take my knowledge and transfer it to as many people as I can, so that their life.
Oh my God, that is honestly, that's a calling. That's a calling.
Oh, and honestly, it's a gift.
It is, because
hold on, I'm just gonna backtrack. I'm backtracking all the way to when Nick was in early intervention, and I got the ABA speech therapist, right? But I didn't know what I was doing. I just had a general degree in special ed. I didn't know anything about autism. I took on my first early intervention client, and he didn't have a diagnosis at the time. I got very involved with him. I didn't really know what I was doing, and he then got a diagnosis of autism. So I told the mom, I said, "Listen," I said, "honestly, I love working with him. I love working with you, but I want what's best for him. I don't know anything about autism." And she goes, "But he loves you."
Oh.
And I said, "I love him too." I go, "But I don't know what I'm doing." She goes, "Don't worry, I'm going to take care of this." She, like 2 days later, she calls me up. She goes, "Okay, I talked to my husband. They came from a wealthy area in Long Island." She goes, "I hired a behaviorist, certified behavior analyst, and I'm having her come in to train you to work with him." And this is at the same time that Nick is getting diagnosed and all that's going on. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "You're staying with us." I was like,
wow.
Oh, I literally have chills again. Like I'm just, and I remember that. And I was like, "You're going to pay her to teach me to work with your son." And the last I heard, now he was another kicker, not kicking, but like another kid with a lot of challenges and behaviors. And the last I heard, he was at Berkeley for like med school.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It was a gift that I could never thank her enough for, because I then knew what to do with Nicholas. And my philosophy is, I always say, I want to help people help their family and their kids be the best they can be. So I want Nick to be the best Nick, you make Robbie be the best Robbie, because that's not going to be the same. Right. They're different kids, or anybody. They're just different skills, different behaviors, different but make them reach their full potential. That's so. I would love to see some change in the state of New Jersey to start, even if it's just in Union County, but wherever it might be. I would love to support and in any way.
All right, Patty.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. My very first Zoom.
Well, let me know however I can help. I need a little guidance from someone like you, Cindy, who has other connections that I can help change. I would say help change the world, because it's got to start somewhere.
That's what we're both trying to do. Yep. We're trying to educate.
Yes.
People and
I'm with you. Whatever you need.
All right. Awesome. Love you. Thanks.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's world and his spectrum of adventures, the link will be in our episode description as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.